My brother forced me to fund his startup in cousins' weddings. When I refused, he turned the wedding into my trial, in front of 300 guests, and paid. I always knew Ethan would ruin something one day. I just didn't think it would be my reputation or that he'd do it in front of 300 people while wearing a rented tux and holding a stolen mic. But I should have seen it coming. I've seen the warning signs since we were teenagers. The arrogance, the deflection, the way our parents acted like every failure of his was somehow someone else's fault. Usually mine. I'm Rachel, 34, single, bakery owner, chronic overachiever according to my mom, and control freak according to Ethan. What I am, honestly, is tired. Tired of pretending our family dynamic isn't toxic. Tired of forgiving people who never apologize. And very, very tired of Ethan showing up with his latest scheme and expecting me to bankroll it out of loyalty. But let me back up to the day it all exploded. It was my cousin Lydia's wedding, a classic Charleston affair dripping in Southern elegance and old money charm. White roses cascaded down spiral staircases. Jazz trio playing under a magnolia tree. Past hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce. The whole thing felt like something out of Southern Living magazine, if Southern Living had a category for emotional landmines disguised as family reunions. I was seated at table 6, with a view of the marsh and just enough distance from my parents to breathe. The only reason I was even there was because Lydia and I had grown up close. She was one of the few in the family who actually supported my bakery when I started it 10 years ago in a tiny strip mall, baking out of a rented kitchen and selling scones at farmers markets. My business, Sweet Briar Bakehouse, is now one of the most sought-after custom cake shops in Charleston. I've catered for mayors, for art gallery openings, and yes, even Lydia's wedding cake. 7 tiers, all hand-painted in edible watercolor. It was my gift to her. And for a moment, standing there in my navy blue dress, glass of Prosecco in hand, I felt proud. Not just of the cake, but of how far I'd come. How I'd built something real, something of mine. Then Ethan showed up. He breezed in late, of course, with his newest girlfriend, Jade, on his arm. She wore a glittery dress about 2 sizes too tight and looked like she had stepped out of a reality show audition line. Ethan was all charm, hugs, and backslaps, acting like the golden child while our parents beamed like royalty watching their heir arrive at court. He gave me that smile, the one he uses when he wants something. "Rach," he said, pulling me into a one-armed hug like we were besties. "This cake is insane. You really outdid yourself." "Thanks," I said cautiously. "Glad you like it." Then he leaned in and dropped the bomb like he was just asking me to pass the salt. "I've got a business idea. You're gonna love it. We just need a small investment from you, a couple $100,000. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" He grinned like it was a joke. "I'll explain later. Let's find a quiet spot." "No," I said firmly. "You can explain it now." He chuckled and looked around as if the concept of being told no was foreign. "Come on, don't be like that. This is a game changer. Jade and I are working with some guys from Atlanta. They've got this idea to combine food delivery, AI, and blockchain. We're calling it Bite Chain." I stared at him, mouth slightly open. "You want me to give you $250,000 for a food crypto app?" He actually had the nerve to look offended. "It's more than that. We're revolutionizing the future of dining. It's not just food, it's technology. It's a legacy. And we're family, so I figured—" "You figured wrong," I said, cutting him off. "This isn't happening, Ethan." He took a step back, blinking like he'd been slapped. "You don't even want to hear the pitch?" "I don't fund fantasies. I run a real business. You should try it sometime." That should have been the end of it, a simple rejection. But Ethan doesn't reject it. He retaliates. He smiled, that fake, dangerous smile he gets when he's plotting something. "You really think you're better than the rest of us now, huh? Just because you sell overpriced cupcakes to rich people?" I didn't respond. I didn't have to. My silence enraged him more than any insult could. I turned and walked away, not realizing that the next time I'd see his face, it would be under the glare of a spotlight, standing at the mic during the toasts. When the DJ announced it was time for speeches, I expected the usual. The father of the bride, the best man, maybe Lydia herself. What I didn't expect was Ethan casually grabbing the mic after the groom's brother finished. "Before we all get too drunk," he said with a grin, "I just want to say a few words about family." My stomach dropped. Ethan had no role in the wedding. He wasn't a groomsman. He wasn't close to Lydia. He wasn't even invited to speak. But there he was on the mic, commanding 300 people's attention. Some people in this family, he began, love to pretend they did everything on their own. But what they don't tell you is how much they took from the rest of us to get there. The guests tittered nervously. A few heads turned in my direction. I felt a heat rising in my neck, a prickling in my palms. "I'm talking about Rachel," Ethan said, lifting his glass. "The self-made baker, the hometown hero. Except none of it would have happened without the family recipes she stole from Grandma May, recipes that were passed down to both of us. That belongs to all of us." Murmurs rippled across the room like thunder. "And now," he continued, "she won't even invest in a real business that could lift this whole family up. Nah. She'd rather hoard her money and act like she's better than us." I was frozen, humiliated, exposed. My parents didn't stop him. In fact, they nodded, and across the room, one woman slowly put down her wine glass. Judge Alana Reeves, retired, powerful, and seated just 6 feet from me. She looked at me not with pity, but with something colder, calculation. And in that moment, I realized Ethan may have started this fire, but he had no idea who he was about to burn. There's a special kind of silence that follows betrayal, not quiet, but charged. Thick, heavy, like the moment before a storm when the air feels electric and the trees stop moving. That's what the room felt like after Ethan's toast. No one clapped, no one laughed. But no one stopped him either. He stood there, all smirking confidence, raising his glass like he'd just delivered a punchline. Meanwhile, I sat at table 6, ice melting in my untouched drink, staring at a man I used to call my brother. I felt my fingers shaking not out of fear, but fury. And not even because of what Ethan said. I could handle his cheap shots, his passive-aggressive jabs about success. I'd been dealing with that for years. What broke me was our parents. My mother, Patricia, looked proud, not a trace of shock on her face. Just that smug little smile she wore when Ethan got away with something, like when he crashed her car at 18 and somehow I got grounded for it. Or when he drained his college fund gambling and she asked if I could spot him from my bakery's emergency account. And my father? Well, he just kept sipping his bourbon like none of this was unusual, like public character assassination was part of the evening program. I took a breath, slow and steady. Judge Alana Reeves hadn't taken her eyes off me, not in judgment, but in recognition. She knew. She knew what this was. Maybe not the whole story, but enough to see it wasn't just a toast. It was an ambush. I stood up, not because I had something to prove to Ethan, but because I was done letting anyone speak for me. "Excuse me," I said, my voice louder than I intended. "Since apparently this is open mic night, I'll say a few words." A few gasps. One person clapped awkwardly. I took the mic from Ethan with a smile so sweet it could rot teeth. "Thanks for the introduction, little brother. Very inspiring." Ethan stepped aside, clearly not expecting me to respond. He looked rattled, just for a second. I turned to the crowd. "Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Whitmore. Some of you know me, some of you know my cupcakes, and some of you, I guess, just found out I'm the family villain." A few nervous chuckles. I continued, voice even. "Since Ethan brought up our late Grandma May and her recipes, I'd like to set the record straight. Yes, I use some of her techniques. Everyone in this family does. But I'm the one who spent a decade perfecting those recipes. I'm the one who got up at 3 a.m. every day for 5 years. I'm the one who maxed out my credit cards, burned out ovens, ruined batches, cried over failed crusts, and kept going anyway." Jade, Ethan's girlfriend, rolled her eyes. I ignored her. "You know what Ethan did during that time? He dropped out of 2 colleges, started 4 different businesses that all failed, borrowed thousands from our parents, and never paid a cent back. And now he wants me to invest in ByteChain, his crypto food app." There were audible snorts from the crowd. At least 2 cousins shook their heads in disbelief. But when I said no politely, mind you, he decided to smear me, in public, at a wedding, because that's what entitled people do when someone sets a boundary. My voice cracked just a little, but I held steady. "And the worst part, My parents encouraged it. They always have. I didn't look at them. I didn't need to. I could feel their disapproval tightening like a noose behind me. They cheered him on when he called me greedy. When I bought my first commercial kitchen, they told me not to brag. When my bakery made the city's top 10 list, they said Ethan just needed time to shine. When I finally paid off my loans, they asked if I could buy Ethan a car. More gasps now, a few shocked glances in their direction. So, here's my toast, I said, raising my glass. To everyone in this room who's ever been told to dim their light for someone else's comfort. To every woman who worked her ass off only to be called selfish. And to every so-called family member who watched it happen and stayed silent. Then I turned to Ethan. You want to sue me for recipes? Go ahead, you'll lose. I've got copyrights, timelines, records, witnesses, and a very patient attorney. He paled slightly. And Judge Reeves, I added, turning toward her with a small smile. Thanks for your support over the years. The almond croissants were always your favorite, weren't they? She smiled cool, sharp, and dangerous. Still are. The crowd's energy shifted instantly. Suddenly, it wasn't Ethan who looked powerful. It was me. After I handed the mic back to the best man who looked like he wanted to melt into the floor, I walked off stage without another word. People avoided my eyes. A few looked stunned. One aunt clapped slowly. Lydia, bless her, rushed over and whispered, I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was going to do that. It's not your fault, I said. He's always been like this. I just never let anyone see it before. As I passed Ethan, I saw the crack in his mask, the twitch in his jaw, the desperation creeping in behind the swagger. He hadn't expected me to fight back. He never does. He thought if he humiliated me enough, I'd fold. But something had broken open in me. A dam, a silence I'd held my entire adult life. I wasn't going back to that. And neither was he. 3 days after the wedding, I was elbows deep in a batch of blackberry lavender scones when I got served. Literally, a man in a rumpled blazer walked into my bakery just after opening, asked for a lemon tart, then handed me a thick envelope with my name on it. Rachel Whitmore? He asked, as if he didn't already know. I nodded, flour on my hands, heart sinking. You've been served. My assistant Melanie, who had just started the espresso machine, froze mid-shot. Please tell me that was a prank. It wasn't. Inside the envelope? A lawsuit. Ethan was suing me for intellectual property theft, claiming I had exploited shared family heritage for personal financial gain and owed him 49% of my business plus damages. 49%, not 50, just enough to control things while pretending I still had a say. The worst part? Attached to the complaint were statements from my own parents. My mother, in black ink, had written that both Rachel and Ethan grew up baking together, and it was always understood the family recipes were communal property. My father added that Rachel wouldn't be successful without the family's influence. No mention of the 14-hour shifts, of the times I cried alone in my car when rent was due and the power had been shut off. No acknowledgement of the years I worked without a paycheck so I could afford one more convection oven. Just a narrative that I owed Ethan because of my family. Melanie, ever the sarcastic one, whispered, Wow, they really said congrats on your success, now hand it over. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because for the first time since the wedding, I felt numb. I didn't cry that night. I did something worse. I doubted myself. What if they were right? What if I had taken more than I realized? Grandma May did teach us both how to knead dough, even if Ethan mostly played video games while I wrote recipes on index cards. Was my bakery built on stolen heritage? I sat in my dark apartment, rereading every sentence of the complaint, trying to find truth in their accusations. And then, I opened my Dropbox archive. Years of photos, emails, dated test batches, ingredient spreadsheets, and handwritten feedback notes from customers. Every single step of my bakery's evolution was documented. I wasn't just a good baker, I was meticulous, and I realized something. I had receipts, literal ones. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Fiona McTavish, a no-nonsense commercial litigator known for her courtroom venom and her love of black coffee with no cream. After reading the lawsuit, she looked at me over her tortoiseshell glasses and said, This is a tantrum disguised as litigation, and we're going to bury it. Are you sure? I asked. They really made it sound like I exploited the family. Fiona didn't blink. If every Southern bakery got sued every time someone used their grandma's peach cobbler recipe, half of Charleston would be bankrupt. This isn't about recipes, Rachel. This is about control. I nodded slowly. You stood up to them, she added. Now they're trying to punish you. Something in my chest cracked open. Not pain, not fear, clarity. Fiona leaned back, folding her arms. We're not settling. We're not compromising. We're going to discover. Are you good with that? I thought of Ethan's smug toast, my mother's betrayal, my father's silence. I thought of Judge Alana Reeves, who sent me a one-line text that night. If you need a witness, I'm available. I looked Fiona dead in the eye and said, let's burn the kitchen down. The pre-trial phase was brutal. Ethan's lawyer, a smooth-talking babyface type with more Instagram followers than courtroom wins, tried to paint me as a manipulative career woman who used nostalgia for profit. He actually said I had weaponized sentimentality for capitalist gain. Meanwhile, Fiona built a case so airtight it could have survived a hurricane. We submitted recipe books dated back to 2010 with my original notes and ingredient tweaks. Bank records showing zero financial contribution from Ethan or my parents. Emails where Ethan himself referred to Sweetbriar as Rachel's thing. A signed NDA from my first investor, listing me as sole founder. Even social media posts showing Ethan mocking my bakery in its early days. And then we pulled our ace. Judge Alana Reeves submitted an affidavit. She confirmed she'd been a customer for years, had personally spoken to me about the challenges of starting a business alone, and had witnessed the outburst at the wedding. Her final line? What I saw was not a sibling dispute. It was public humiliation targeted at a successful woman by those closest to her. When Fiona read it aloud, I nearly cried. Ethan's legal team tried to backpedal. They requested mediation. They wanted a mutual resolution, but the damage was done. My story had spread from Charleston gossip circles to legal blogs to a viral TikTok someone made out of the wedding speech video. The world wasn't laughing at me anymore. They were rooting for me. A week before the court hearing, Ethan called me. Blocked number. I only picked up because I was mid-frosting and thought it might be a supplier. Rachel, he said, voice low and pitiful. Can we talk? No, I said flatly. Please, I didn't want it to go this far. You sued me. I was angry. You embarrassed me. You made me look like a joke. You did that all by yourself, Ethan. Silence. Then, if we drop the case, can you just give me a loan? I'm in debt now. Jade left. Mom and Dad are pissed. Everyone thinks I'm a scammer. I paused. I looked around my kitchen, smelled sugar and butter in the air, heard the soft ding of the oven timer. I don't think you're a scammer, I said softly. I think you're a coward who tried to steal from someone who never owed you anything. Then I hung up. The day of the hearing, I wore white. Not cream, not eggshell white. The same color as the walls of my bakery, the frosting on my signature wedding cake, the apron Grandma May used to tie around my waist when I was 6 years old and helped her roll biscuit dough. I didn't wear it to be symbolic. I wore it because I wanted to remind myself, I have nothing to hide. The Charleston County Courthouse was buzzing. A handful of people I didn't recognize sat in the gallery, probably local reporters. There'd been chatter online after the wedding speech video went viral. Some TikTok influencer dubbed me the cupcake queen who clapped back. Cute. I wasn't there for them. I was there to put Ethan's fantasy to rest. The one where he gets rewarded for showing up late, taking shortcuts, and calling it innovation. Ethan arrived looking like a drowned rat in a borrowed suit. His hair was slicked back. Jade was gone. No parents in sight. Apparently, they even had the good sense to stay out of the public fallout. My lawyer, Fiona, leaned over and whispered, "He looks like he read the affidavit." I smiled. Hope he choked on it. The judge, not Reeves, but a quiet, sharp-eyed woman named Valerie Grant, called the session to order. Ethan's lawyer went first. He spoke with affected calm, describing Ethan as a visionary who'd been emotionally wounded by exclusion from a family legacy. He said my bakery used intellectual property passed down through generations, and Ethan, as a descendant, had a reasonable claim to joint equity. Fiona leaned over again. If he says generational trauma, I swear I'll object on grounds of TikTok terminology. Then it was our turn. Fiona opened like a lit match dropped into gasoline. Calm, controlled, deadly. She walked through a timeline of my business from the day I filed for a business license to the first 5-figure catering job I booked. She introduced my ingredient logs, recipe books, and photos of me hauling flour bags twice my size. She entered into evidence an email chain from Ethan in 2017 calling my bakery that cupcake thing. But the moment everything turned, the moment Ethan's fantasy began to crack was during cross-examination. Fiona called Ethan to the stand. He swaggered up like he was walking onto a podcast set. "Mr. Whitmore," Fiona began, "can you describe your financial contribution to Sweetbriar Bakehouse?" "I wasn't officially an investor, but..." "So that's a no?" "I supported her in other ways." "Such as?" He blinked. "Encouragement, advice, emotional support." My stomach turned. Ethan wouldn't know emotional support if it came frosted with sprinkles. "Did you ever write any recipes used in Sweetbriar's menu?" "Well, Grandma taught both of us." "Please answer the question, Mr. Whitmore. Did you contribute any recipes?" "No." "Did you ever work a shift, bake a cake, wash a dish?" "No." "Did you promote the bakery, lend your name, connect Rachel to investors?" "No." "Have you, at any point, referred to the bakery as Rachel's thing?" He hesitated. "Yeah, I guess." "Would you like me to show you the email where you said that verbatim?" He swallowed. "No need." Fiona turned, slow and theatrical, facing the gallery. No further questions. The judge asked Ethan's lawyer if he had any witnesses. He mumbled something about family support, then asked for a short recess. They never returned. Ethan's case unraveled faster than wet fondant. That night, the judge issued a statement. Case dismissed with prejudice, which meant not only was the lawsuit dead, Ethan couldn't bring it again. It was over. I stood outside the courthouse, blinking against the afternoon sun, Fiona beside me, the verdict still echoing in my chest. A few reporters hovered nearby, microphones out, waiting for me to say something. I didn't. I didn't need to. Let the judgment speak for itself. That night, I went back to the bakery after hours. The shop was dark and still smelled like lemon curd and burnt sugar. I sat at my little office desk in the back, staring at the framed photo of Grandma May on the wall. She was holding a pecan pie and wearing her apron, the white one. Her eyes crinkled in that way they did when she was proud. I touched the frame lightly. "I kept it mine," I whispered. And for the first time in weeks, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I finally realized I'd won more than just a lawsuit. I'd finally broken the cycle. The next morning, a courier showed up with a small package. No sender. Inside was a slice of wedding cake in a plastic container, the one I'd made for Lydia's wedding, with a sticky note that read, "For the real recipe keeper, a fan." I smiled. Then I opened my email inbox. 15 new client requests, 3 interview invitations, and 1 message from Judge Alana Reeves. Subject: "Thought you might like this." Attachment: screenshot of a private Charleston Law Society group chat. Message: "I told them you were the best baker in town. Now they all want almond croissants." 3 weeks after the court hearing, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message, her voice soft, unsure, like someone trying to act warm in a cold room. "Rachel, we were just hoping to talk. Your father's... Well, we're all very upset about what happened. Ethan made some poor choices, but family's family. Maybe it's time we move on?" Move on. That was rich, considering they never actually moved with me to begin with. They were always waiting at the finish line, demanding credit for a race I ran alone. The next day, a letter arrived in my bakery's mailbox. Handwritten, 3 pages, Ethan's handwriting. He wrote that he was sorry, that he'd messed up, that he let pressure and pride get in the way. That Jade had left him, his name was kind of blacklisted in tech circles, and he was thinking of moving back home. He ended it with, "Maybe we could start fresh. Maybe I could help with the bakery. I know we've had our differences, but we're still siblings, right?" Right. I sat with that letter in my hands for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just remembered. I remembered Ethan's toast. The look on his face when he said I owed him. The way my parents nodded. They laugh from the back of the room. I remembered standing alone in that ballroom with 300 eyes on me and not one hand reaching to hold mine. I remembered the slap I never got, but felt all the same. So I placed the letter back in the envelope, returned it to the sender unopened, and for good measure, I attached a sticky note. This kitchen doesn't need another thief. That should have been the end, but karma, she likes sequels. The following Sunday, I was restocking the macaron display when Melanie ran in holding her phone, eyes wide. "Rachel, you have to see this." It was a local news article. Title: Whitmore Family Bakery Scandal. What really happened behind that viral wedding speech? Apparently, someone had leaked the full transcript of the court documents. Maybe a court clerk, maybe Fiona, maybe Karma herself. Every detail was in there. The false claims, the wedding video, the judge's statement, even a quote from an unnamed source. I had a guess who, saying, he thought she'd fold. Instead, she baked him into a corner. It exploded online, again. But this time, the narrative wasn't just about drama. It was about boundaries, about ownership, about women who refused to be robbed quietly. Messages poured in, DMs from women saying they saw themselves in me, emails from small business owners sharing stories about relatives who tried to buy in after the hard work was done. Even a therapist messaged me asking if I'd consider being on a podcast about family betrayal. I didn't respond to most of them, but I read every word, because for the first time in my life, I felt seen. 1 month later, the holidays arrived. The Whitmore family usually did a big thing: long table, fake harmony, matching sweaters that itched like guilt. Not this year. I got a single email from my mother. No subject line, just one sentence. "Are you really going to spend Christmas alone?" I stared at it. Then I hit reply. "No, I'm spending it in peace." Then I booked a weekend cabin with Melanie and her girlfriend, made mulled wine, and watched the snow fall outside the window while we toasted to cutting ties that no longer fed us. 6 months passed. The bakery flourished. I launched a seasonal menu, opened a second location downtown, and partnered with a women's shelter to host baking workshops for survivors. At night, sometimes I stood at the window of my apartment with a glass of wine and looked out over Charleston, lights glittering like a city that had finally opened its arms to me. Not because of a scandal, but because I had finally stopped shrinking. And then, one quiet evening, it happened. A knock at the bakery door after closing. It was him, Ethan. He looked small, not physically, but everything else about him had shrunk: the bravado, the smugness, the "I deserve this" energy. Just a man standing in the wreckage he created, hoping someone would help him sweep it up. "I'm not here to fight," he said. I wanted to say it in person. I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I didn't move. He took a deep breath. "You were right about everything. I didn't build anything. I just thought, if I couldn't make something of my own, I'd take part of yours." He looked down at his shoes. "But you didn't let me, and you shouldn't have. You fought harder than I ever could have." Still, I said nothing. "I'm not asking for anything," he added quickly. I wanted you to know, I get it now. That's all." He waited. I stared at him for a long time. Then finally, I nodded once. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. He nodded too. Then he left. That was the last time I saw him. Sometimes I wonder if he meant it, if he ever really got it. But most of the time, I don't wonder at all. Because I stopped needing answers from people who only show up to take. I still have the bakery. I still have peace. And I still have the recipes. Not the ones from Grandma May's old tin box. The ones I wrote by hand after burning 50 batches. The ones I perfected through 3 a.m., taste tests, and small-town rejection and pure stubbornness. The ones I earned. And no one gets to take those away from me. Not anymore. My dad chose my brother over me. Even I ran the farm solo for over 10 years. So I left, and now the farm is falling apart without me. My dad said I'd be fine on my own, so he gave the farm to my brother with 3 kids, who hasn't visited in 2 years and plans to cash out. Here's how my story started. After my mother died, I returned to our little family farm at the age of 34 to assist my father in keeping it operational. My younger brother, 31, lives 2 states away with his wife and 3 children. He works in the city and only visits once or twice a year, so he has had no involvement in the farm. Over the years, I've primarily been in charge of the farm's operations. It's a little business with barely any profit. Most years we barely break even, which is enough to pay property taxes and keep the place running for my father's sake. My father continues to assist whenever possible. It provides him a purpose after his mother's death, but the majority of the actual labor and management rests on me. I am in charge of everything, from caring for the animals and crops to maintaining the equipment and managing all of the bookkeeping and paperwork. And I do all of this on top of working a part-time job in town to supplement my income because the farm does not pay well. Essentially, I've been working on the farm unpaid, living there, and helping out whenever someone needed it. Here's the problem. My father recently said that he is rewriting his will and intends to give the land to my brother. His explanation is that my brother has a family to think about because of his children, whereas I am better capable of caring for myself. In other words, because I'm single with no children and my brother is married with children, Dad believes he deserves the inheritance more than I do. I didn't want to yell at my father, but I did question if he was serious. I replied something like, "What about all the work I've done here?" And he became defensive, saying it's not about keeping score and that in a family, you assist each other out. He minimized my concerns, hinting that I shouldn't worry about who gets what and that he believes I'll be fine on my own because I'm capable. That truly hurt. I have devoted over a decade of my life to this farm. I put my personal life on hold and moved here to help Dad and maintain our family's land. In contrast, my brother has never mowed a field or helped with harvesting. He's not a nasty person. His life took him somewhere else. But now, Dad is stating that the farm, which only exists because I've been working on it, will be given to my brother, who had no involvement in it, simply because he has children and I don't. It feels like a massive slap to the face. I'm not concerned about money in the sense that this isn't a profitable property. It is primarily about the principle. If my brother gets the farm, I believe he would just sell it for cash because he has neither passion or skill to run it. That would mean that everything I've done to keep this farm alive, improve it, and preserve it has been in vain. In addition, I would lose both my home and my job at the same time, while my brother would benefit from a sale. I haven't had a serious sit-down confrontation with Dad since that initial shocking talk. He seemed to dismiss the subject by saying, "Family isn't about keeping score," making me feel selfish for even bringing it up. I feel bad because I do not want to be greedy or ungrateful. I know I return to aid out of love, not with the expectation of a reward, but at the same time, I feel extremely underappreciated and taken for granted. It's as if he doesn't value my efforts simply because I'm the daughter, and in his opinion, girls only help out. I'm so conflicted and hurt. I'm not sure how to approach my father without getting into a confrontation, and I haven't told my brother about it. So, Reddit, am I stupid to be furious that my father intends to give the family farm to my brother, despite the fact that I've been working on it for years? Is my frustration justified, or am I simply entitled? I really need some perspective on this scenario. Comment 1. NTA. Your father is clearly taking advantage of you. He's practically treating you as free labor while rewarding your brother, who accomplished nothing. That's just unfair. You have every right to be offended, and you should seriously consider not working for free. Your father is displaying obvious favoritism or perhaps an outmoded belief that the son should inherit the farm. You're not mistaken here. OP's response: it definitely feels like I'm being taken for granted. Comment 2. I am very sorry you are going through this. Have you truly sat down with your father and discussed how this makes you feel? Maybe he doesn't appreciate how much this is affecting you or how much effort you've put in since you haven't fully sold your side of the story. It could help to carefully convey to him what you've told us here. Also, does your brother actually want the farm? If he is aware of the circumstance, he may be willing to support you. In any case, clear communication is essential. OP responded, "You're correct. I have not had a genuine heart-to-heart talk with him yet. I sort of froze up when he started the change. I think I need to have a proper conversation with him about it. As difficult as it may be, I'm not sure if my brother knows or what he would think. He has never expressed interest in the farm, but yeah, I'll try to discuss it gently with Dad and see if it helps." Comment 3. YTA. Boo-hoo, you decided to go back and play farming. That does not imply you can complain about not being given the land. It is your dad's property, not your own. He can leave it to anybody he wishes, and it stands to reason that he would give it to the child who has a family to maintain. You sound entitled and demand a reward for what you were meant to do. If you do not like it, you are free to leave. But don't try to shame your poor father simply because you regret squandering your own time. Up responded, I don't expect a payment for assisting my family. I did it because I cared, yet it is difficult not to feel upset in this situation. I understand that it is ultimately his decision, but I do not believe it is wrong to feel disrespected. I am not trying to guilt him. I simply want him to realize where I'm coming from, and if nothing changes, I may have to leave. Even though that's terrible. Update 1. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who commented on my initial post. I followed the advice to sit down with my father and discuss things through. Unfortunately, our conversation did not go as smoothly as I had intended. I attempted to convey to my father how I felt, how I had committed years of my life to keeping the farm functioning, and how it ached to hear he was going to give it to my brother who had never been involved. He appeared uncomfortable and defensive. He basically told me that I shouldn't think of family inheritance as recompense for effort, and that I was wrong to make it all about keeping score. His statements were something along the lines of, this isn't about tallying up who did more. In a family, you do things for each other because you care, not for some reward. He reiterated that my brother had a family to support and that I'm more independent. So, in his opinion, this is about looking out for the family members who require the greatest assistance. I mentioned that it felt unjust, and he answered, life isn't always fair, and inheritance isn't a paycheck. That pretty much ended the conversation because I didn't know how to react without getting into a dispute. I also questioned if my brother was aware of any of this. Dad told me that he had not addressed the change to my brother at all. He responded as if it was no big thing, saying it was just estate planning and I shouldn't be too concerned. That surprised me because it seemed like such a big issue. The entire conversation left me feeling dejected. My father clearly sees all of the work I do on the farm as something that someone would naturally do for her family. He does not consider it as an effort that entitles me to ownership or stake. It's simply expected of me. Realizing that was quite painful. So, at this time, nothing has actually changed. Dad is keeping to his plan, and I'm still here doing the daily farming chores, but I'm becoming bitter. I haven't approached my brother about it yet because he is still in the dark and lives far away. I honestly don't know where to go from here. This scenario just feels dreadful and unfair, and talking to Dad didn't help. I suppose I will have to find out the next step. Maybe it involves my brother, but I am at a loss right now. Comment 1. This is really wrong. To be honest, it sounds like your father has an old school or misogynistic mindset. For example, the daughter is expected to work out of duty, while the son, who accomplished nothing, receives the award since he is the male in the household. You are not even not the asshole. You have every right to feel hurt. The OP responded, it certainly feels like a way. Unfortunately, I'm beginning to suspect it's a lot of that old-fashioned thinking. Things hurt to think that's how he sees things, but I appreciate you confirming that it isn't okay. Comment 2. If your father refuses to see reason, you may need to start looking after yourself. It is not fair to you to continue working yourself to the bone for nothing if he is simply going to give everything to your brother. Perhaps start by reducing your agricultural tasks or getting a paid employment elsewhere to guarantee your future. It's unfortunate, but your father is taking you for granted and you deserve better. The OP responded, to be honest, I have been thinking the same thing. I adore the farm, but I can't devote my entire life to something that will never be mine in the end. The thought of leaving makes me feel guilty, but you are correct that I must consider my own future if he does not. Comment 3. You should certainly include your brother in this chat. There's a chance he doesn't want the farm. If he's a sensible guy, he might agree with you, or at least admit to your father that he has no interest in it. At the absolute least, speaking with him could reveal whether he intends to keep or sell it if it comes to him. Knowing this may provide you with additional leverage or knowledge the next time you speak with your father. OP responded, that is an excellent point. I haven't spoken with my brother yet, mainly because it's difficult and I'm not sure how to bring it up, but I'd like to know what he thinks and what he'd do if Dad actually follows through. I'll try to have that chat with him soon, especially if I can't reach Dad in any other way. Update 2. Many readers pushed me to speak with my brother, so I did. My brother and his family came to see Dad and me briefly. A brief weekend getaway. I took the chance to speak with him about what had happened. I basically told him straight out that Dad was going to leave the farm to him in his will. He seemed astonished. He appeared to have learned about it for the first time here. I asked him hypothetical questions about what he would do if he inherited the property. Would he like to keep it or handle it somehow? He was quite honest. He responded something like, I can't exactly move out here and start farming. My life is in the city. The kids have school and I have my job. In other words, he recognized he wouldn't be able to use the land personally. Then he shrugged and said he'd probably sell it if the opportunity presented itself. I'm not going to lie, hearing him say that out loud irritated me, even though I expected it. I informed him that I had spent over a decade working on the farm and didn't want it sold to some developer or stranger. I was hoping he hadn't thought about it from my perspective and would reconsider. He seemed uneasy and muttered something like, "Yeah, I get that. This is, I don't know, it's complicated. I'd have to think about it." That was about the end of our conversation. He did not explicitly deny the bequest or advise that I receive any share. He primarily appeared uncomfortable. I suppose he doesn't want to be the bad guy, but he plainly sees the farm as a burden or an asset to be sold rather than something to retain in the family. After that chat, I felt quite down. It verified my greatest fears. If Dad goes through with this, the farm will be sold as soon as it passes to my brother. I'm trying not to resent my brother. It's not his fault Dad set this up, and he's simply being practical about his own predicament. But it still seemed like a blow since it meant that all of my efforts here would be in vain in the end. So that is where things stand. Dad has yet to expressly tell my brother, "Hey, I'm leaving you the farm." So my brother is waiting for that news from Dad. I imagine I haven't told Dad about my conversation with my brother yet either. We just had the visit, they departed, and now I'm processing everything. I am not sure how or when to bring this up with Dad. Like, by the way, I talked to brother and he said he'd sell the farm. I expect the conversation to be tense, but at least I now have a better picture. If nothing changes, the farm's future is effectively nothing. It's a very disappointing conclusion, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. Comment 1. You now have concrete evidence that your brother would sell the farm. I think you should notify your father right away. If your father's entire argument was based on family and preservation, he must understand that his plan means the farm will not be passed down to future generations. If he still insists on giving it to your brother while knowing it will be sold, he is incredibly stubborn and short-sighted. Lay everything out for him. Giving the farm to your brother means it's gone. Perhaps this will wake him up. OP response. I agree that he should hear this quickly. I'm working up the guts to have the conversation. It won't be simple to inform him that his magnificent idea would entirely backfire. But you're right, he has to face that truth. I sincerely hope that information causes him to reconsider, because it is exactly what I was scared of. Comment 2. I have to say that I was disappointed by your brother's reply. I understand that his life is elsewhere, but he didn't even consider trying to maintain the farm or acknowledging your years of work. He simply answered, "Yeah, I'll sell it," without skipping a beat. A stand-up guy might have told your father, "Give it to sis, she's the one who earned it." At the very least, he could have offered a split or plan that included you. It seems somewhat greedy that he would simply grab the money. I understand your father is the main issue here, but I'd be hurt by my brother as well. OP response. I was a little disappointed too. I don't think he intends to injure me. In his opinion, he is simply being reasonable about what he would do. But certainly, a small part of me hoped he'd say something like, "You've been doing all the work. Maybe it should go to you." Or that he'd at least reassure me he wouldn't screw me over. He actually didn't. I'm not trying to make him look bad, but it bothered me that he didn't seem to appreciate what I'd done. Update 3. It's been a few months now, and I've been discreetly planning for the possibility of having to construct a life outside of the farm. After reading the suggestions here and seeing how things were going, I updated my resume and started exploring other options in agriculture. I haven't gone yet, but I've become less interested in long-term planning for the farm. I suppose my father has noticed. My father recently confronted me. He inquired why I appeared distracted and uninterested in the upcoming season's plans. I decided to be honest. I told him that I was considering my choices outside of the farm because it had become evident to me that I didn't have a long-term future here. I tried to express it as nicely as possible, but I did not conceal the fact. I can't keep putting all of my time and effort into a farm that I won't inherit or own. Well, that blew up. My father became really agitated and emotional. He basically blamed me for abandoning him. He exclaimed, "So you're just going to leave me here all alone in my old age? After everything, you're walking away?" He went on to say how much he thought I cared about our family and the property, and how unhappy my mother would be if she found out I was willing to just up and leave. He phrased it as if I had betrayed the family. I did my best to remain cool. I told him that I had been here for 8 years because I loved the family, but I also needed to think about my own life. I told him directly that it's difficult to justify staying when I know I'll end up with nothing, and that if my brother inherits the property, he'll probably sell it anyway. I did explain that my brother had told me quite clearly that he was going to sell. Dad only shook his head and mumbled something like, "You don't know that for sure. He might realize its value to the family when the time comes." It was as if he was in denial or didn't want to hear it. The talk was terrible. We were both angry and hurt at the end of it. My father thinks I'm being selfish and disloyal. From my perspective, he is the one who put me in an impossible situation. I told him, "I'm not trying to hurt you, Dad, but I have to have a life that's mine. I can't work myself into the ground here and then have it all taken away." He just said, "I never asked you to sacrifice anything. You chose to come back. If you want to go, go." But he said it in a bitter way. So, yeah, we're kind of at a standstill. He knows I'm serious about leaving, and he's upset. I feel guilty and sad too. I'm sorry things have reached this point. I wish he could see my perspective without feeling assaulted or betrayed. It's as if there is no positive outcome here. If I stay, I am basically screwing myself over. He believes I'm taking advantage of him if I leave. This is a dreadful situation. At the present, we're only discussing the basics of running the farm on a daily basis. I'm still doing my tasks while he's doing his, but there's a lot of tension. I honestly don't know what will happen. I've sent out a couple of job applications, so we'll see what happens. I haven't formally given up on him, but he knows I'm close, and it's devastating for both of us in different ways. Comment. This seems like a no-win situation. In some ways, I sympathize with your father. He's elderly, probably afraid of being alone and watching the farm die, but he took it on himself by not treating you fairly. You have been wonderfully patient and generous. Choosing to live your own life is not selfish. It is necessary. You offered him multiple chances to do the right thing. If you have a good work chance, you should seize it without hesitation. Hopefully, your father will ultimately realize that his actions have consequences. In the meantime, take care of yourself. OP answered, "I appreciate it. It's a tragic situation all around. I feel awful for my father, and I know he is worried about the farm collapsing or being alone, but you are correct. I gave him every opportunity to make things right, but he refused. I need to watch out for myself now. If an outside job becomes available, I will most likely accept it, no matter how difficult it will be to go. I hope he understands someday, but I can't count on it." Update 4. A lot has happened during the last few months. The big news is that I landed a new job. I was given a position overseeing operations at another farm about 3 hours away. It's a larger commercial farm, and they were impressed by my experience managing my family farm. The compensation and perks are pretty good, which is something I'm not used to. After working for free for so long, I decided to take the job. I gave my dad a full 2 months' notice that I was leaving. I wanted to give him as much time as possible to prepare, as my departure is obviously a significant change. When I told him I was going, he freaked out. This was a distinct reaction from the previous rage. This time, he was panicking. He begged me to stay and promised we could work anything out. He even agreed to modify his will again. This time, he offered to split the property 50-50 with my brother if I didn't leave. I did not agree for a number of reasons. I calmly conveyed to him that sharing farm ownership is not a viable solution. If I owned half and my brother owned half, he could still force a sale of the entire land or sell his piece to someone else, such as a developer, which would essentially damage the farm. I asked my father to think about how that scenario would play out, and I believe that made him pause. For the first time, I watched him realize that his compromise approach would not secure the farm. I believe that was the point at which he realized I was correct about the risk. He went quiet and then stated he needed to speak with my brother. According to what I gathered and what he later told me, that phone chat with my brother was a genuine eye-opener for my father. He directly asked my brother what his plans would be if he inherited even a portion of the land. Apparently, my brother informed him, "Yeah, Dad, I'm going to sell it." I assumed he was aware of this. My brother wasn't nasty, but he was honest that he doesn't have the time or desire to manage a farm, and that the money from selling it would be more beneficial to his family. I'm not sure if my father truly grasped it until he heard it directly from my brother just now. Their conversation became quite heated, at least on my father's side. I wasn't on the call, but my father seemed noticeably disturbed afterwards. I overheard him yelling about how he couldn't believe we'd just give up our family's land for cash. I believe he was frustrated with the situation and possibly at himself, because what did he expect? He now realizes that his approach would have resulted in exactly the opposite conclusion he desired. At this moment, my father is scrambling. He knows I'll be departing in a few weeks. My notice time is approaching its end. He began trying to find staff to replace all of the work I perform. Unsurprisingly, it is not easy. For starters, competent farm labor or a manager costs significantly more than he ever had to pay me because I worked for free except housing and board. He honestly told me the other day in a disappointed tone, "I had no idea it would be this expensive to find someone to do what you do." I feel sorry for him. I really do. He's an elderly man who is concerned about losing both his child and me moving out, as well as the viability of the farm. My contributions were not limited to what the family does. They held genuine economic worth. And now he sees it plainly because he must pay someone else. The farm's finances are already strained thin, and recruiting workers or a farm manager will eat into our slim profit margins. I'm not sure how long he will be able to keep things going without me. I'm now packing my belongings and planning to move out in a few weeks to start my new career. My father and I are on slightly better terms now than we were after the major fight in Update 3. I believe he is too fatigued and worried to continue battling with me, and he has accepted that I will leave. He hasn't explicitly stated it, but I believe he understands why this is happening and accepts responsibility for it. We've come to a tragic understanding. To answer the question that everyone has been asking since the beginning, no, I do not believe I am the bad guy in this case. I don't think my father or brother intended to hurt me, but their actions did. And now we're all living with the aftermath. It's a bad, convoluted situation with no clear winners. I'll go on and do what's best for me. If the farm becomes too much for my father to manage, he may have to consider selling it in the future. That aspect is now up to him. I'm sad that this is how things ended. Thank you to everyone who followed along and provided advice. This has been a difficult journey, but I am confident that brighter days are coming, at least for me. My sister-in-law mocked my pregnancy, demanded my twin names, and tried to use them first. But I clapped back in a way she never saw coming. I'm Leah, 32, and I've been married to Jack, 34, for 4 years. We have a 3-year-old son and are currently expecting twins, a boy and a girl. This situation includes Jack's sister-in-law, Miranda, 36, who is married to his brother, Tony, 40. They've been married for 7 years. Miranda and I are extreme opposites. She is outspoken, the center of attention at family events, and has strong opinions on everything. I prefer to be quiet and observe people. When Jack first introduced me to his family, I informed him that Miranda and I would never be close friends. We've had a cordial but distant friendship ever since. The trouble began 3 years ago with my first pregnancy. Miranda and Tony have tried to have children for years without success. When someone mentioned my pregnancy at family dinners, Miranda would either change the conversation or make comments about how pregnancy was not that unique because millions of women go through it every day. Then she'd spend significant periods of time in the restroom. Miranda unexpectedly offered to plan my baby shower around the middle of my pregnancy. I gently declined, stating that my mother and sister had already covered it. She persisted for weeks until I had to be more honest about not wanting her involved. The oddest behavior began after we revealed that we were having a son. Miranda got preoccupied with learning what we wanted to name him. Every family gathering, phone conversation, and text message, she would inquire about the name. When I told her we weren't going to share it till birth, she got obviously angry and commented on how secretive we were. Jack and I chose a traditional Irish name that was uncommon in our area. Miranda couldn't stop gushing about how unique and beautiful our son's name was once we revealed it. She'd bring it up at every opportunity, telling everyone how she'd never heard a more wonderful name before. This continued for months. Fast forward to this year. Miranda finally became pregnant about the same time that I conceived the twins. She was approximately 9 weeks ahead of me. When we announced we were having twins, she resumed the name questioning, but this time she wanted both names because we were having one of each. Her remarks grew increasingly offensive. She'd make comments about how with twins, I'd probably gain twice as much weight and never recover. When someone congratulated us at a family cookout, she loudly proclaimed that we had clearly gotten pregnant on purpose just to steal her thunder. Everyone knew we had been trying for a second kid for more than a year. I opted to ignore her comments entirely. Miranda loves on drama and arguments, so I felt the best way to irritate her was to offer her no response at all. After weeks of her repeatedly asking about the twin names, I became skeptical. I asked Jack whether he believed Miranda wanted to know our names so she could use them first, given she was due earlier. He chuckled at first, but soon understood I was serious. After some thought, he admitted that it was plausible. I then decided to put my notion to the test. Jack's father was celebrating his 61st birthday at our place the following weekend. We had been steadily putting together a nursery for the twins in our spare bedroom, but it wasn't ready yet. I devised a strategy to leave false identities somewhere Miranda may discover them if she went digging. I went online and created custom wall decals with 2 names that I liked but were not near to our final choices: Rose Arwen and Luke Max. I completed the entire ordering process but stopped just before completing payment. Instead, I printed the final order confirmation sheet, which included both names plainly. The night before the party, I folded the paper and put it inside the nursery dresser's middle drawer, giving the impression that it had been haphazardly shoved in there. I made sure one corner stood out just enough to be noticed if the drawer was opened. Jack thought my scheme was absurd, but he agreed to a $23 bet that Miranda would not snoop. We were busy hosting the party at our place, so we didn't pay attention to Miranda's movements throughout the evening. The next morning, I checked on the nursery. Everything looked the same. The paper was still in the drawer, exactly where I'd left it. Jack and I assumed the test had failed and forgot about it. But then I realized something intriguing. Miranda ceased inquiring about our baby names after the party. For someone who had been bothering us every day for weeks, the sudden silence seemed strange. Miranda gave birth to her baby 4 weeks later. Jack and I visited the hospital to greet our baby nephew. When I asked Miranda what the baby's name was, she smiled and said, Luke Max. She stared directly at me when she said it, as if she was expecting a great reaction. Instead of appearing offended, I became overly enthusiastic. I raved about how beautiful the name was, how perfect it sounded, and how fortunate they were to choose such a lovely combination. I continued for a full minute as Miranda's attitude shifted from smug enjoyment to uncertainty to apparent frustration. Jack tried not to laugh alongside me. Later, in the elevator, he gave me $23 while shaking his head. We didn't see Miranda and Tony for a few weeks, giving them time with their new kid. Miranda, according to Jack's mother, appeared to be struggling more than expected with new parenthood, probably due to baby blues. When I informed my sister about the event, she laughed at first, but then thought I was being harsh by setting Miranda up like way. I can't decide whether what I did was wrong. Miranda was making my pregnancy difficult with her continuous demands and harsh comments. The phony names weren't even names I wanted to use someday, but perhaps I went too far with the trap. Should I feel horrible about it? Update 1. The issue with Miranda has become more difficult than I had anticipated. First, let me explain why Miranda and I never got along. The problem began when Jack and I became engaged after only 9 months of dating. Miranda told family members that I was hurrying Jack into marriage and had possibly ensnared him in some way. When Jack's grandma mentioned how excited she was to have another granddaughter, Miranda made a point of adding she hoped Jack was certain of his decision. Our wedding made everything worse. Jack and I had a typical church service for 151 guests, followed by a reception at a country club. We went on an 11-day honeymoon in Ireland. Meanwhile, Miranda and Tony had married at City Hall in front of only their immediate family, followed by dinner at a chain restaurant. Tony proposed after Miranda gave him an ultimatum concerning marriage, which the entire family was aware of. Miranda also battled with the fact that Jack's family welcomed me right away. His parents and I share similar hobbies and characteristics. His grandmother, who everyone refers to as Nana, immediately began engaging me in her weekly shopping excursions and Sunday dinners. Miranda and Tony had been together for 4 years before their wedding, but Nana had never warmed up to her in the same manner. The contrast became even more stark after Jack and I purchased our suburban home 3 years ago. Miranda and Tony continue to rent a small flat in the city because they cannot afford to buy property in their neighborhood. Jack and I both have steady corporate jobs with nice benefits, whereas Miranda and Tony work in retail with uncertain hours. Miranda had too much to drink at Tony's birthday party approximately a year ago and got into a fight with him over money. In front of everyone, she stated that she should have married Jack rather than Tony because Jack had his life together. The entire household went silent. I was not even surprised. I assumed Miranda had affections for Jack for years based on how she behaved around him. I answered by asking whose brother she was referring to, which would be incorrect anyhow, given that Jack and Tony have a younger brother, Neo, who is just 26 years old. Miranda lost her cool entirely and began yelling at me for twisting her words. She said the next day that she did not recall saying anything wrong. Now for the latest update. Jack's mother came over yesterday to discuss arrangements for my baby shower next month. I'm due in late January, but twins usually arrive early, so we're prepping for December. While she was here, I asked how Miranda and Tony were adjusting to parenting. Jack's mother sat down with a heavy sigh, saying it was complicated. Miranda and Tony, she claims, were battling about baby names even before the kid was born. Miranda had spent months compiling lists of female names, but refused to consider male names. When Tony inquired, Miranda asserted that the baby was certainly a female. If it was a boy, she intended to give him the name Tony Jr. This sparked a heated disagreement because Tony's older son from a prior relationship is not named after him. The youngster lives with his mother in another state and visits her twice a year. Tony believed that naming the new baby Jr. would be unfair to his first son. Miranda, according to Jack's mother, convinced herself she was having a daughter because she wanted one so much. Miranda refused to find out the gender while pregnant for fear of being disappointed. She insisted on enjoying her pregnancy, believing she was bearing a girl. Miranda's yearning for a girl grew stronger as a result of her family relationships. Jack's mother is the only daughter in a family of 3 brothers, and she has 3 sons herself. My son was her first grandchild, yet my daughter would be her first granddaughter in decades. Jack's mother burst into tears of joy when we announced we were carrying a girl. Jack's mother has always been nice to Miranda, but they have never bonded. She is smitten with my little son in the sweetest way. Every week, they organize activities for grandmothers and grandsons. Miranda observed this bond develop and grew persuaded that having a daughter would finally cause Jack's mother to love her in the same manner. When Miranda gave birth to another grandson instead of the granddaughter she had hoped for, something changed in her thoughts. The hospital scene was considerably messier than I expected. Miranda and Tony were still debating over names when Jack and I arrived. Miranda had never mentioned Luke Max to Tony until that point. Tony was stunned and indignant when she told us what had happened. He had no idea where those names came from and disliked them completely. Tony refused to sign the birth certificate bearing such names. They left the hospital without providing a name for the infant. According to state legislation, parents have 11 days after the birth to register a name. Miranda ultimately told Tony that he could do anything he wanted since she didn't care anymore. Tony chose Bruce Rocky. Bruce is named after his favorite basketball player, while Rocky is named after a boxer. He preserved the Rocky from Miranda's announced name, but otherwise modified everything. So, the infant was never given the name Luke Max. Miranda's attempt to utilize my fictitious names lasted precisely as long as it took Tony to put his foot down. Miranda, according to Jack's mother, has become withdrawn since returning home from the hospital. She meets the baby's basic requirements but appears distant from anything else. She broke down crying in front of Jack's mother last week, stating she'll probably never have a daughter due to her age and their previous fertility issues. Despite everything Miranda has put me through, I now feel awful for her. Having a healthy baby should be enough. But I understand feeling disappointed after months of building up expectations. The irony is that Miranda's breakdown may bring her closer to Jack's mother, as they now share the experience of only having sons while desperately wanting daughters. Miranda still has no idea I set her up with the fictitious names, and I haven't notified anyone in the family about my scheme. Some may argue that I should confess, but I don't see the point in exacerbating her current situation. I'm not regretful about what I did. Miranda made my pregnancy uncomfortable with her incessant demands and rude comments, but I'm also not cruel enough to kick someone who is already down. Update 2. Miranda discovered my name trap, and the consequences have been far worse than I anticipated. I gave birth to twins in early January, Rose and Frodo Jack. Yes, Rose was one of my fictitious names, but it was also on our list for females long before the trap. Pure coincidence, which resulted in further trouble later. Both babies are healthy, and we're adjusting well to having 3 children under 3 years old. Jack took 2 weeks off work to help, and his mother has been coming over every day to help with the elder children. The difficulty began when Jack's mother was carrying Rose and noted how lovely her name was. She stated she had seen it recently but couldn't remember where. I made a general statement about it being a common name. That evening, Jack's mother called me. She recalls seeing the name Rose written on a piece of paper in our nursery dresser drawer the night of Jack's father's birthday party. She explained that she was searching for baby wipes at the party when one of the children had an accident. I informed her that there were supplies in the nursery dresser. When she opened the drawer, she noticed the corner of a paper peeking out and tugged it to push it down properly. She had glanced at it and seen both names, Rose Arwen and Luke Max. Jack's mother assumed those were our chosen names and didn't think much of it at the time. But when Miranda introduced Luke Max at the hospital, Jack's mother recognized Miranda had read the same newspaper elsewhere. Miranda had snooped in our nursery, discovered what she believed to be our genuine names, and attempted to use one of them first. Jack's mother was furious that Miranda had gone through our personal belongings and that I felt the need to build a trap. I decided to give her the entire truth about my concerns and the phony name arrangement. Jack's mother was not pleased with the deception, but she understood why I had done it. She was angrier about Miranda's probing than my trap. The trouble arose when Jack's mother could not keep the story to herself. She told Jack's father, who notified Tony during a phone call about something else altogether. Tony confronted Miranda, who initially denied everything but later admitted to looking through our dresser drawers. According to Tony, Miranda broke down totally when she discovered we had duped her. She stated that she had planned to use any term she could find to hurt me and make herself feel better about her own disappointments. She'd spent months resenting my pregnancy and wishing to ruin something for me in the same way that her reproductive issues had ruined everything for her. Tony was upset, not only because of the spying, but also because Miranda admitted that she tried to name their son specifically to hurt me. He informed her that she needed to apologize to both Jack and me immediately. Miranda declined. She claimed I had humiliated her by setting her up, and she refused to apologize for anything. She said that I was manipulative and had turned the entire family against her. This resulted in a massive brawl between Miranda and Tony. He pointed out that she had brought all of this upon herself by searching through our personal items and attempting to take our baby names out of spite. Miranda accused him of choosing my side over his own wife's. The disagreement heated up when Tony said that he had never liked the name Luke Max and was relieved they had ended up with Bruce Rocky instead. Miranda screamed that she despised the name Bruce Rocky and wished she hadn't had a baby at all if it wasn't going to be female. Tony moved out that night and has been residing with Jack's folks for the last 3 weeks. He has been caring for baby Bruce throughout the day while Miranda works, and then returning him to her at night. They barely talk to each other. Jack's mother is stuck in the middle, trying to help with both grandsons while Tony and Miranda work out their marriage. She is disturbed about the situation and concerned that all of the strain would impact baby Bruce. Miranda has been telling everybody who will listen that I am a bad person who ruined her marriage via my scheming. She has convinced some of Tony's coworkers and extended family members that I am manipulative and harsh. Jack is unhappy with his brother and Miranda for involving our newborn babies in their turmoil. He wants to cut all touch with them until they resolve their issues. I'm inclined to agree, but Jack's mother begs us not to exacerbate the situation by further dividing the family. I wasn't expecting my small test to reveal this level of dysfunction in Miranda and Tony's relationship. I only wanted to confirm my thoughts about the name theft. There is now a baby caught between two parents who are unable to be in the same room. Part of me feels bad for starting this series of events, but a larger part of me believes Miranda's behavior was bound to produce difficulties soon. I simply happened to be the catalyst that brought everything to light. Update 3. Miranda and Tony separated, and she has vanished from our lives entirely. The divorce process progressed fast because they had only been married for 6 years and did not own much jointly. Tony maintained their apartment lease and furniture. Miranda moved back in with her parents in another city around 2 hours away. The custody arrangement for infant Bruce became the most serious concern. Miranda first wanted full custody, stating Tony's work schedule was too unpredictable for him to be a responsible parent. Tony responded by bringing up Miranda's remark that she wished she hadn't had the baby. Jack's mother ended up testifying about Miranda's behavior during the name dispute, including her admission that she tried to intentionally damage me. The judge was unimpressed by someone who would use their baby's name as a weapon against family members. Tony received primary custody, with Miranda receiving supervised visits every other weekend. She has to drive to our city for the visits since the judge does not want baby Bruce to travel back and forth all the time. Jack's parents oversaw the visits in their home. Miranda attended her planned visits and obeyed the regulations for the first month, but she appeared distant from Bruce, frequently passing him off to Jack's mother while she sat on her phone or watched television. Miranda began missing visits, first 1, then 2 in a sequence, followed by months without touch. She stopped returning Tony's calls to schedule makeup appointments. When Jack's mother attempted to contact Miranda, her phone went directly to voicemail. We discovered on social media that Miranda had been dating someone new, a man she had supposedly met at work before returning to live with her parents. Her Instagram photos showed them traveling together, going to restaurants, and generally living like a childless couple in their 20s. Tony was devastated. Despite everything that had transpired, he hoped Miranda would stand up as Bruce's mother. He'd been suffering with his own guilt about their marriage's dissolution, wondering if he could have handled things differently. Jack's mother stepped in to help Tony with childcare while he worked. She basically became Bruce's primary caretaker during the day, which worked out perfectly because she already looked after my 3 children on a daily basis. The cousins are growing up together, which benefits everyone involved. Miranda made one farewell appearance at a family gathering to celebrate Jack's grandmother's 80th birthday last month. She arrived unexpectedly with her new partner, presumably expecting to be welcomed back as if nothing had occurred. The mood became tight instantly. Miranda's boyfriend was uneasy when he realized he'd entered into a family scenario. Miranda tried to act normal, asking to hold Bruce and commenting on how much he had grown. Tony returned Bruce after a few minutes and informed Miranda that she wasn't supposed to be there outside of scheduled visits. Miranda claimed she was family and had every right to attend family gatherings. Jack's father finally stood up, telling Miranda that she had lost the right to appear up unannounced after months of ignoring her son and bad-mouthing family members. He asked her and her partner to leave. Miranda burst into tears, claiming that everyone had turned against her for something she had done nothing to deserve. She claimed that I had ruined her life through manipulation and that no one cared about her side of the story. I had remained quiet throughout the confrontation, but that comment prompted me to speak up. I informed Miranda that digging through my personal belongings and attempting to steal my baby's name out of spite was her decision, not mine. I told her that she was responsible for every problem in her life and that she should quit blaming others for her actions. Miranda called me names I won't say here and said she wished I'd be unhappy for the rest of my life. Her partner was mortified and began pushing her toward the door. They left as she continued to hurl allegations at various family members. That was 2 months ago. Miranda hasn't contacted anyone from her family since then. Tony found out through mutual friends that she and her lover had moved out of state together. She allegedly told people that her ex-husband's family prevented her from seeing her son, which is absolutely false but simpler than admitting she picked her current relationship above her child. Tony's been doing well as a single father. Bruce is a cheerful, healthy baby who lights up whenever he sees his father or grandparents. Tony recently began dating someone new, a woman who works for his company and has 2 children from a previous marriage. She appears to understand his circumstances and gets along well with Bruce. As for me, I have no regrets about creating the name trap. Miranda's reaction to being caught exposed her true personality. Someone who would abandon their child because they couldn't take being exposed for their petty, spiteful actions was never going to be a decent mother. My twins are prospering, and my elder son enjoys being a big brother. Jack and I are tired yet thrilled with our 3 children. Despite everything, Jack's bond with Tony has grown stronger. They now communicate regularly and support each other as fathers. Family gatherings are much more serene without Miranda's drama and nastiness. Jack's mother may focus on being a grandma rather than dealing with Miranda's emotional outbursts. Even Jack's father, who normally keeps out of family disputes, has remarked on how much more calm everyone appears. People sometimes ask me if I'm unhappy with how things turned out. The reality is, I did not cause Miranda to abandon her child or end her marriage. I simply created a situation that revealed her actual character. She could have accepted being caught gracefully, apologized for snooping, and gone on with her life. Instead, she chose to destroy every relationship she had rather than accept responsibility for her actions. Bruce is better off without a mother who despised his existence from the day he was born. Tony is better off without his wife, who married him as a consolation prize and spent years wishing she had picked someone else. The entire family is better off without someone who adds drama and negativity to every gathering. My name trap worked better than I expected. I figured I'd catch Miranda being inquisitive and embarrass her a little. Instead, I unintentionally helped a baby escape a terrible mother and Tony leave a poisonous marriage. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is provide them with enough rope to hang themselves.